body, but I
will
don't
call
ever
the
really
Redevelopment Authority,
see her.
the City of Stevens Point, to order. The director will take the roll.
Schleiss.
Here.
Gardner.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Cooper, I don't see. Kemeter.
Here.
Laddick.
Here.
Barrett.
Here.
6-1.
We have a quorum. Number 2, persons who wish to address the board on a specific agenda item other than a public hearing must register to request at this time. Those who wish to address the board during a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until a public hearing is declared open by the chairperson, and we do not have any public hearings scheduled. Number 3, Director, anybody sign up?
Yes, we have the applicants here regarding agenda item number 4. So you can either take their public comment now, or we can hear from them when we get to the appropriate agenda item. It's up to
When we get to the agenda item, I'll call on you to give your presentation. All righty. Item number 1, approval of the minutes from November 14, 2023 and February 20th, 2024 meetings of the Redevelopment Authority.
I move we approve the minutes as read and place them on file, and point out that Ms. Kneebone is in the attendance on both of them twice, so.
Okay, look at that. Thank you for that correction. We'll
Okay, we have a motion.
Second, I moved, so second, somebody?
I will second then.
Lady Alderman. We have a-
Which Kneebone would like to
Yeah, the second
Well,
one.
that's why you
Yeah.
got on there twice. You seconded it, your attendance or something. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2, approval of Housing Trust Fund financials, January, February, and March of 2024. Director.
Nothing substantial to note here. Would recommend approval as presented.
I recommend approval of the January, February, March 2024 Housing Trust Fund financials.
We have a motion, second by Jean. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, approval of housing modernization loan loan program financials, January, February, March 2024.
So this is a new financial item that the board will see on a regular basis. This is our housing modernization loan program. I do think it's important to just note as monies come in and as they go out, that this body's aware of it. So you can see, we do receive monthly payments from a number of different folks as this program continues to expand. And it has quite a bit actually over the last several months. So nothing other than that to note.
Questions? Motion?
Move to approve.
I'll
Sound
second.
fine?
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, request from Jack and Jeanette Freeze for an exemption to the multifamily rental conversion grant program for property at 516 Buchholz Avenue. Go ahead and make your presentation, and then I'll turn it over to the commissioners.
I'll actually lead this off for Jack and Jeanette. So Director Karnowski and I were first approached by Jack and Jeanette Fries to explore opportunities to generate more opportunities for low to moderate income home buyers within the city of Stevens Point. And they initially had reached out to us to review a potential property on College Avenue, but after reviewing that opportunity, decided to hold and to pursue other opportunities. And they were curious about some of the housing grants and loans that we oversee within the department. And while we explicitly state within the program guidelines for the multifamily rental conversion program that the program is available for single-family owner-occupied homes, or for someone to purchase a home and then convert it into and occupy that home. Jack and Jeanette wanted to continue pursuing the possibility of the multifamily rental conversion grant, and I was given the direction to continue to work with the Freezes to explore the possibility. So Jack and Jeanette have done an incredible amount of due diligence on the property at 516 Buchholz Avenue, reviewing the purchase price. Presented in front of you are the program packet or pamphlet that they are utilizing to present the full scope of their project. They have purchased the property. They intend to convert it back into a single-family home. because of the grants, they are would potentially be able to reduce the sale price of that home for a low to moderate income home buyer that they would hope to find soon, so that way they can advertise their program, or this project, excuse me, and the sale price of the home adequately for that low to moderate income home buyer. So it's really imperative to have a formal decision on whether or not they have the availability of the grant, so that way they can go forward with finding a home buyer in this case. So what they're presenting is a project in which they intend to sell the house at cost of acquisition and of the renovations. The labor of the project is donated in kind, so all of the cost includes is the cost of the purchase and the cost of the contracted labor and supplies to execute the renovation. We have received a very detailed schedule of expenses from Jack and Jeanette. The property itself is eligible. The work that they are performing on the home is eligible, but since they themselves are not the occupants of the home, there's a discrepancy on whether or not they are an eligible applicant, even though they are going through the process of renovating this home for an owner-occupier for this house. They've been very thorough with all of their application, all of the expenses, the quotes for all of the labor and work. So at this point, they are looking for a formal approval, and we would need that from this body, either a formal approval or denial of their application, so they can go forward with locating a home buyer for the home and knowing the sale price that they can start to advertise the home at. We have discussed the project at length internally, so we were able to review whether or not the applicants would be acquiring assistance from other sources on the project, and is with that we kind of bring this back to you all for discussion, but it is our recommendation to proceed with the grant request, and we recommend conditional approval that because the Freezes project matches the intent of the program to convert a originally designed single-family home back into a single-family owner-occupied home, that written verification from the Freezes on which project expenses are deductible from taxes shall be submitted to the staff before approval and reimbursement to the Freezes, and that the award would not exceed the value of eligible expenses minus any deductions that they would receive. So that is our recommendation for the Freezes, but we have opened this to discussion for you all, and if the Freezes would like to present any additional information at this time, I'd ask for them to come forward.
Questions?
Okay, we'll leave you open for questions. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, John.
I was not at the last meeting, so I'm not familiar exactly what the conversation was last time. But in reading through some of the materials here, I think the comparison with the request we have before us and comparing that to something that Habitat would bring to us is pretty comparable. I think that they both have the same intent to convert a multifamily back to a single family. They both have the same intent to sell it at cost. They both have the same intent to get somebody started in building equity in their own property. And so I support the request. Just full disclosure, I do know Janet and Jack Freeze, not particularly friends with them. I have no financial interest in anything they're proposing here. But just so that you know that. But on the other hand, because I know them to be honest in what they're proposing. I trust them that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, even though it's going to take 18 months to get this thing accomplished. So I tend to be in support of it. I know there was some discussion last month about some concerns about setting precedent. I think that if we were to proceed with this, one of the suggestions I might have is that if a future request would come before us, that if they hire themselves or their own company or a company they're associated with, we make sure they not pay themselves, because I think the concern was they're going to get some sort of money profit from our program. And yes, they can hire themselves, but they can't pay themselves. And that's exactly what the proposal is before us today. And that would be, I think, analogous to what Habitat would do as well, too. And I defer to Mr. Barrett because of your experience in.
No, this sounds perfect. I mean, they're not flipping it to make a profit, right? We're not loaning them money to make a profit off of it. So it checks all the boxes. I mean, it's converting multifamily to single family, getting a new buyer in there, a new homeowner, in a very completely rebuilt structure, essentially. So they won't have those emergency furnace repairs, roof failures, right after they just shelled out their last penny to buy the home. This way they're in a home that's going to take care of them for a while till they can build some equity and be prepared for that maintenance, Is there going to be any kind of home buyer education that's going to be required of your buyer? Or is that with the bank?
We do have some guidelines and some resources for them to look at, which we would like to have them do even before they make application. We
Sure.
have that on a list of things that they should be doing
Sure.
before they actually apply. And one of them is to take the course, the new home buyers course, I think it's out of Madison, for them to learn about what it becomes, what it means to be a homeowner.
Exactly, because I think there's a lot of people who are convinced that they should be home buyers, and they're not ready for it, and they're in over their head. And so going along with prepping the house to take care of them for a while, prepping them to be able to take care of the house is also really important.
We did have lots of discussions with Habitat here in town about how they operate, how they do their application process, basically is what they were not interested in.
Jack, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the lectern, I know our AV folks can't hear you.
Hard for you to hear me. So we did talk with Habitat for Humanity, primarily about their application process and how that works. And so one thing that we're going to do is it's not just we're going to pick out the highest bidder. It's going to have to be somebody that meets the qualifications. So it's not going to be a arm's length process. We're going to be meeting the applicant. They're going to be required to do 100 hours, like Habitat, 100 hours of sweat equity in the home. So they're going to learn about the home, hopefully, before they actually purchase it. And then they'll be able to know, okay, 5 years, the roof's going to have to be replaced, if that's what it is. It's not, but if that would be the case. Or the water heaters are 5 years old and they're going to need to be raised. Things like that. They're going to learn about those things as they do the labor in the house.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Cleaning the gutters.
Yep, exactly.
Simple things like that.
You got brand new gutters, which they do, but they're going to need to be cleaned.
Right.
Unless you want to invest, which we might do, in leaf.
Sure.
Leaf guards.
Right.
Dave?
Yeah, disclosure, so I also know Jack and Jeanette, very fine people, so nice to see you again. If this house doesn't sell, would it be rented, or would you just leave it vacant until a buyer that can afford the place be found?
Well, I guess what you might be asking is if it doesn't sell to a low to moderate income
Correct.
person.
Yeah.
We don't find a qualified person. The way the market is, it seems like any house that's below 190,000 is
Should be
going
marketable.
to go pretty fast.
Okay.
So I think if we failed to find a buyer that was qualified, we would have to come back to you or somebody and say, we were unable to meet the qualification standards that we put in our proposal, can we up it? Instead of 85% of the median income, can we use 100% of the median income, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So we do have a realtor that's on board with us, one of our collaborators, and she seems pretty optimistic about selling the house.
Okay.
She has a lot of people that are looking for houses in that range, that price range, that are outbid by other people, so.
Okay. All right, the second question I have is for staff and maybe the rest of us, is I noticed that, I didn't see the break, I couldn't find the breakdown here, but I read it earlier. We have multifamily, single-family conversion was what, 37,000 something?
30, I think it's 34.9.
34.9, okay. And then we also had a neighbor-to-neighbor for $5,000, and I'm kind of wondering if we should keep it just in one grant or the other, because I don't really
Thank you
like
for the
stacking
question.
grants.
Yeah, so we received both applications simultaneously from the applicant, and the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant was denied. So their request for those funds is not on the table at this time. It's
okay.
not up for discussion. It's been denied already.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one's pretty clear. It's got to be owner-occupied
Yeah,
property.
okay.
That and the income restrictions for that program, when applied here, also
Okay, good.
make it ineligible.
Okay. Cool.
But in answer to your question, no, we would not rent it.
You would, okay.
John?
Getting back to Mr. Laddick's comments, too, it does say that grant funds would not be dispersed until after the conveys the property.
Oh,
And so there is that sort of last minute, you're not going to get the money until you find a suitable buyer. If you can't, then the deal's off.
okay.
So I think that's the way this is being proposed. Is that right?
We have some
Yes.
contract stipulations or contract additions, supplemental, that was with that brochure. And they do spell out basically all the things that we said we wanted to do in our proposal. We're willing to put that into the contract, the grant contract, to guarantee them for the city. So for instance, single family, owner occupied, that's covered underneath the deed restriction, okay? And we would be required by this, if we sign that grant contract, required to file that deed restriction prior to even selling the house. So we would be then required to sell it to a single-family owner-occupied person. We wouldn't be able to, it would bar us from renting it then, basically.
Right, so that's bullet 3 within the grant contract supplemental conditions that would be appended to our normal grant agreement that we sign with the applicant that's been awarded.
Other questions? Mary?
I think this is a really creative way to get somebody into homeownership. I renovated, or had our master bath renovated right after COVID, and that was stressful enough. I can't imagine being a renter and wanting to buy a house and then having to take on a total renovation. I think it would stop a lot of people in their tracks that maybe would qualify. So I think this is a great idea.
Other questions, comments, motions? I know I was one of those that had a concern about for-profit people turning this over, so I was thinking that if you got the grant money ahead of time, that we'd have to either charge market rate on the grant, and then if all the conditions are met, then you would reverse that down to a zero. But if we're not going to disperse it until all the conditions are met, I guess I don't have an issue, because this is setting precedents for the future, how we're going to look at it. But, John?
Well, I was going to make a motion to approve, but I'm trying to figure out how to put all the conditions on there. I'm going to need some help from staff to place the conditions on there. I don't know if you want to use this latest one from Jack dated April 30th, or if, Chris, you've got some help with the motion there?
I would recommend that you utilize the language in the last paragraph from the memo, that we review the expenses of the project, which is included within the grant contract supplemental conditions and terms as provided from April 30th. So as long as both of those are met, that would be acceptable.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Gene, second.
And I will add on again that if they do work themselves, they not pay themselves money either through themselves or through any business that they operate.
You're adding that as an additional condition?
Yes.
Okay.
Other discussion? Director will take the roll.
Schleiss?
Aye.
Gardner?
Aye.
Kneebone?
Aye.
Demeter?
Aye.
Laddick?
Aye.
Barrett?
Aye.
6-0.
Motion approved. Congratulations. You're a test case.
Yeah, you're in business. Good luck.
Item number 5, request from city staff for modification to the Neighbor Helping Neighbor Grant Program. Who wants to take that?
Cordes, I'm sorry, Neighborhood Improvement Coordinator, Mark Cordes, will be providing an overview to the body here.
We had discussed this last meeting, and I had included all those changes as I understood them from direction from the Redevelopment Authority. The only thing that we didn't discuss that I actually would like to change was not the grant amount. The maximum grant amount would stay at $5,000, but currently the way it's worded, the first $2,500 of the grant is just straight grant funds, but it's for materials only. Then the second $2,500 can be used for either labor or materials. It's just matched on a dollar-for-dollar basis. I'd just like to do a dollar-for-dollar match. The average grant award was $4,834. So everybody's almost maxed out anyway. And it's just easier to explain. Some people have a hard time understanding, how the grant's structured. So that was my only other recommendation other than what we had discussed. And I'll just go through those other things quickly unless somebody had a question on the dollar amount. I know that was at the end. Again, the dollar amount's not going to change. It's a $5,000 match. You'd just go to a straight dollar-for-dollar match. Every dollar they spent would be matched up to $5,000.
Commissioners, questions? How you doing on coming along with that mass mailing to everybody in the city that property would qualify to get the information out?
That has been a request made by this body and hasn't been
A number of
super high.
times, a few months ago.
Yes, it's been made a number of times. We will definitely, I know we do add it, anytime we send out an improvement notice, we do provide that, but I guess the question would be, do we go into the assessment files, find properties that are below average, and then provide the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant to those folks, or do we, do it more strategically, unless Mark has something more specific he's been working on?
So, Chris has been working on a few things. Maybe I'll let you go first, then I can talk about it.
So, upon my date of hire, one of the first things that we did was review the list of poor or very poor listed homes within the community, and we did send a targeted mailer to those addresses with the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant program. So that has been done. That was a very short list, surprisingly. Does not meet all of the eligible properties. We wanted to make sure we were hitting the high value properties first. We expand that condition to one more, and all of a sudden we go from about 30 properties to I think that it was about 1,500. So we have been reaching out to folks monthly. We evaluate all home sales and send them information, all new homeowners information about all of the housing programs that do exist, so that we are dispersing information as home ownership changes. And we understand that that doesn't always reach residents of the community who have lived in their homes for some time and have not changed ownership. We have sent out a significant amount of press releases, and I think if you want to speak to more on the usage of the program.
Yeah, so the other thing we did, we had a meeting with contractors as well as property owners in the city of Stevens Point. We had that last month, I think it was.
Yeah,
that informational session. So CAP Services was there as well as ourselves. We just talked to, there's a variety of both combination of contractors and homeowners because we wanted contractors to be aware of these programs, especially with the change to the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant with the ability to do after the fact work. So how that's relevant if you're going to include things like furnaces, emergency furnace replacement, that's almost always going to be after the fact, and if it's a low income person, so we wanted to make them aware of that. The other thing is every order that goes out, that information is in there. So if there's a property that's in dilapidated condition, they get that information in the order that's sent out. So that's probably the best and most cost-effective way to target properties that are in need of repair, because when an order goes out, they get the information on the programs, and that's how we get actually most of the calls, at least the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant. I think that was it. There's something else that's escaping me now, but really the direct contact through the orders is, I know what I was going to mention. So the last two after the facts we've had that have come in here, these are people that lived in apartments and had bought properties. We're rehabbing them as they lived in their apartments. There's nothing we would have done in a way of a direct mailing marketing that would ever hit these people. Because they're living in an apartment, they buy this property, they aren't aware of what the programs are. Anything other than what's on our website or social media is really the only way we're going to reach somebody like that, a buyer that's brand new, which is I think what we're targeting, based on what came forward here. We're targeting brand new property owners. A lot of times they're living in apartments, so the direct mailer is not going to really, we're not going to contact those first-time homeowners other than through like social media or ways like that. So I don't know if that answers your question about that.
Well, not really, because
Okay.
a couple meetings before, every time I bring it up, says as soon as we get the reval information all put together, we should be able to download a grouping from a certain value home, run off the labels and do a mass mailing, boom, and I think we're missing people out there.
Yeah, I guess the question would be, what are the parameters that you want the mailer to be done with? So is it a specific dollar value that we send it out?
I thought that's what we discussed before.
Because, you could have a $150,000 home, but a lot of those homes are in decent shape. So we can do that, and we can at least put together costs for doing so, 60 cents a pop for mailers. But, we can, if that's like the dollar threshold, we can definitely put that together and send those out.
I would like to see something like that, because if you've got a program, we're trying to sell it, you need to advertise it. And if you're missing a certain segment, I don't know if you're going to get it. Not everybody gets papers anymore. Jane?
Mark, do you contact realtors with these programs?
Yeah, we have actually, I think, 3 of the largest in Portage County. We met with their staff because they would have typically weekly or monthly staff meetings, and Chris and I attended at least 3 that I can think of where we had presented the information on our programs. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how many of those actually panned out into actual projects. And I don't know how to delicately put this, but I think a lot of them are just looking at getting the sale, either from the buyer or seller standpoint. So that seems to be their primary concern. But we did reach out to answer your question. Yes, we have met with them. There isn't a like a countywide group of realtors that meet on a regular basis either. So it's really meeting with the larger real estate firms individually, and we have done that.
Because before they used to, like every Thursday morning, they designate for meeting and going through properties, and
Yeah, that's fallen by the wayside. In Wausau, in Marathon County used to do the same thing, but really kind of pandemic and post-pandemic, those meetings have kind of fallen apart, and they've never been kind of resurrected to have a group realtors meeting. Usually it was on a monthly basis. They'd have whatever, coffee or something, and get together and discuss issues, but that hasn't happened.
Chris, maybe you could talk a little bit about, not Chris, Mark, sorry, it's been a long week. It's Tuesday.
Sure.
Baby was up all night?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the utilization, the number of grants that we've provided out over the last few years?
I don't know. Last year was 13.
So-
We did 13 grants, which was by far our best year. I mean, we went to $5,000. That was a huge change. We have a lot of people utilizing this, and it's it's definitely covering a need within the community. And we've had some people, even those $5,000, there have been some great rehab projects where people have kind of used their own elbow grease to make pretty significant improvements in their neighborhoods.
I think I would just go back and cite, I think at our last meeting, we presented the utilization statistics, so it might be within your minutes, that we did see a significant amount of utilization, and the utilization far exceeded the amount of grant dollars that were dispersed. It was quite incredible increase in funds to be used.
Well, let's look at getting that taken care of and get a mailing out so we can humor the chairman, because he likes to see things advertised if we're selling. And our money should go for helping fix up homes around there. So going back to the original request in the agenda, what are your wishes?
I mean, I can just very quickly kind of go through what we discussed maybe the last time. I'll just give you got just 2 minutes. The big differences are we're going to also, this program had been exterior projects only. We are going to include some interior projects. They have to be specifically related to habitability issues. So if somebody just wants new carpeting, that's not going to qualify. It's going to have to be hot water, sewer line, a water line. Again, those are really, they don't happen regularly, but they're somewhat common. We get a couple a year. Low-income people have to have a water lateral replaced, and that's very costly, $15,000. And there's nothing available for those type of projects. So it's going to have to be related to habitability. It's going to have to either be in Chapter 21 or Chapter 30. Chapter 21 is the building maintenance or property maintenance code. Chapter 30 is the building code. We would allow after the fact applications. I've also asked to increase. Right now we have a dollar amount for the median value, and since the revaluation, I'd just like to use 120%. That we can adjust as values adjust. We would include demolition of accessory structures. And this has come up recently because I've issued a lot of orders for accessory dwellings, garages typically, that need to be removed. We'd also cover a shed up to 200 square feet to be replaced if there is no either attached garage or detached garage that's currently on the property. And then the modification of the $5,000 and how that funding is allocated. That is it. If anybody has questions on any of those and why we put them in there.
Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I make a motion that we approve the changes as submitted.
We have a motion.
I'll
Eugene, second. Discussion? Director, take the roll.
Schleiss. Aye. Gardner.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Cavanagh.
Aye.
Laddick.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Number 6, request from city staff for modification to the residential demolition grant program. Director.
Kick this over to Chris.
Thank you, sir. So upon hire, the residential demolition grant had been one that had been in draft and shortly and approved, had been drafted and available to the public. We haven't had a single request come through yet for utilization of the residential demo grant as long as I've been on staff. And so as we look at the intent of the residential demolition grant, the idea is to support residential infill and new construction within existing neighborhoods where some of the homes are past the point of no return, where there's more cost in rehabbing that building than it would be to demolish it and restart. So to this extent, we've only received actually just last Friday, before I put this memo together, we received my first request to utilize the funds. So we're looking at alternatives to utilize the funds that are allocated to the residential demolition grant that also meet that desired impact of inspiring new construction within our existing footprint of the city. Thanks to Zoning Administrator Adam Kuhn, we have this wonderful housing affordability report that lists by parcel ID number what parcels are vacant within the city of Stevens Point and would be suitable for residential construction. So I had reviewed all of the parcels that were listed under Adam's report. Of the 350 vacant parcels that Adam had identified, 234 of them would be suitable for residential construction, and if we were to even limit that just a little bit further, about 198 of those are zoned as R1, R2, or R3. So if we're looking at residentially zoned parcels that don't have a structure on them but could fit a new home or duplex on them, we have about 200 of them currently within the city footprint. And so the request before you is to make a gentle change to the residential demolition grant to be a residential infill grant program to essentially award $20,000 towards a new owner of those parcels to then construct a new home on them. That's essentially the change in the program that's before you.
Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman, in reviewing our funds here, I see the Housing Trust Fund really hasn't had a whole lot of activity in it. And I'd really like to see staff concentrate more, along with your mailing idea, concentrate more on making loans to people to remodel their existing homes and support the existing structures more so than the infill. That's my priority. My priority would be to spend staff time and labor and attention and mailings and on getting that housing trust fund more operational as opposed to this infill one. So I'm not particularly in favor of this change.
So just real quick, the Housing Trust Fund has been relatively stagnant over the last few years, and in fact, we've put a fair amount of money into investment funds from that Housing Trust Fund. It was really created for the sole purpose of redevelopment and reinvigoration of our existing neighborhoods. So I understand Commissioner Gardner's comments, but I do believe that this is within the spirit of the Housing Trust Fund, and staff is supportive of just getting money out there, and this is one of those ways that we could continue to provide money out to do redevelopment within our existing neighborhoods.
If I may also add, so there are 2 existing housing modernization loan applications that we are processing right now that will bring us to the cap of what we have available to the housing modernization loan program. So that's another $48,000 worth of work that's expected underneath the housing modernization loan. So we will need to consider allocation of funds again for that as well.
These parcels that you've identified, are many of them with the owners of those parcels adjacent property holders? Like somebody has a big lot or double lot, and they've kept that lot vacant because they wanted that space?
Some of them are, yes. Yeah, some of them are owned independently by, either a company or a corporation. They've been holding that property for a long time. The award for the grant would not go towards that existing owner. That would go towards a new owner who would own or occupy a home that's being built on that parcel. So it would be a financial incentive then for a new homeowner to reach out to that existing property owner to say, I would like to purchase your land, and they would then have the opportunity then to negotiate a sale price of that parcel. So there are some parcels that are owned by adjacent property owners, and understand that some people have retained ownership of those parcels because of a preference. But this is to inspire some more conversation between a potential homeowner or someone who's be willing to construct a new home and who is holding on to that property.
How many vacant lots around the city are actually for sale right now? Estimate?
Very few. I mean, vacant lots
that you're talking about here.
actively on the market, less than 10.
I think on Zillow, I saw 3 yesterday.
Yeah, of the 3. Well, there's the Redevelopment Authority owns 3, and then 3 on Zillow. So yeah, a little less than 10, so 6.
I really can't see saying, John, you're going to buy a house and build it, here's $25,000, have fun with the dang thing. I would rather, like John says, see that money go back into rehabbing what we've got in existing stock and keep pushing for that, because if I want to sell that lot, I'm going to sell it, make my price, and you plan on building your house anyhow. I mean, that's just free money that I don't know is going to be that big of an incentive. Dave?
Well, my question is, can we do both? I guess, do we have to not do this in order to do the other one? I think we have enough money to do both, don't we?
You could do both. There's definitely funds available for both. I think, my thought process with the Redevelopment Authority would be, you have a program that, in the 5 years I've been with the city, we've had 0 applications for and almost no requests. The one Chris received last week, I might have received one early on in my tenure with the city. And the reality is that the market doesn't allow for somebody to buy even a dilapidated home on the city's north side or south side, as an example, because even our most dilapidated properties are on the market for $149,000. It doesn't make sense for somebody to buy that, receive $25,000 from the city of Stevens Point to tear the house down, and then build a new home, right? That's the requirement of the existing residential demolition grant program. And so this kind of shifts the focus away from doing the demolition and more on finding better ways to infill existing properties. The state requires annually that we report how many vacant parcels exist within the city, and that's, that housing affordability report is available online. But, Mr. Kemeter, your neighborhood is a really good example. We had a pretty dilapidated property, I think on your street, that the city raised. And we were hoping, we had a party that was interested in buying that lot and building a home that would have fit the character of the neighborhood. And before we knew it, the adjacent property owner bought that lot, and now it's sitting vacant, right? So now the city's lost property tax revenue because even though the house that was on there was in terrible shape, there was more value to the city because there was an improvement on it as opposed to being a vacant lot. This would at least maybe encourage some of those more vacant lots that are owned by adjacent property owners or other property owners to start turning those over and getting those becoming more productive on the tax base end of it. So we could put together a separate infill program if that's the request of the body, keep this and put together a separate infill program. There is, probably within the investments and the existing Housing Trust Fund, my guess is we're north of 600,000 within the program or within the fund itself. So there's definitely funds available to do both programs if that's the wish of the body.
Well, the memo seems to indicate all the time vacant parcels. That's not going to do anything. Our original intent is to try and do something with the dilapidated homes, so we're moving this whole thing the other
I know in
direction.
15 years at CAP, we never did a demo, and we had a fund set up for it, because it doesn't make sense with someone who can't afford the house as it is, to tear it down and then build a new house. Well, now they're totally out of the price range. So, yeah, I understand the intent, but it's underutilized, I guess, or impossible to utilize, difficult to utilize.
Comments, motions?
Might be worth a try just to see if there's any interest. I mean, it might actually bring somebody into home ownership to have that grant once they've purchased a lot. Because housing construction costs are really high now. And if after a year or so nobody's interested, well, then maybe we relook at it then. I mean, that's another option.
I like the idea of encouraging infill instead of putting up another development someplace. I do appreciate that, for sure. I'd rather that we push that infill.
And included in the packets too, so we've constructed, or at least come up with this idea based on some of the infill programs that exist in other communities, and included within your packets was a component of a different infill program where the intent would then be for us to say, these are the types of homes and the size of homes that are available for the lots, so we can accelerate the process for new construction too. So there's a little bit of additional work beyond just the establishment of the grant funds for that purpose, but there are ways that we are also aware of that we can then come to the table for a resident who would like to construct that new home and accelerate that process for them too. We've seen that it's working in a few other communities, and we'd love to give it a try.
You still need to have willing sellers on the property, but I'd rather see it to go the other way. If somebody came in for the 3 parcels that the Redevelopment Authority have, and their income is here, and says, geez, I really could use this extra to get it filled in and sell and get it going, that's one thing. I think that's where that money would be better used, but if I get somebody that's, worth $3-4 million, but I'll take that $25,000 to go build my house. Well, that isn't really.
Well, and I would say, if you look at performas that are put together for folks that might be interested in like building these style of homes, but not necessarily, and then selling them, the performa and the margins on these are really tight. I mean, on we're about $285 a square foot. So it's not like these are becoming infilled with affordable options, but you're simply infilling and adding more housing stock to the existing footprint of the city. And there is value in that in the long term, because now we're not looking at extending sewer and water and road infrastructure. But yeah, you've got to have a willing seller and a willing buyer. This body is pretty notorious for selling property for $1, and so buy high, sell low, right? I'm just kidding, of course, but those are things that we always take into consideration, and we do review performance of folks that come in for, like the freezes. We reviewed their performance to make sure that their numbers were penciling out correctly. But I do think it's worth at least exploring some type of infill program, maybe independent of the demolition program.
What's your thoughts? Motions?
I'll move to approve the request from staff to modify the residential demolition grant program.
A second.
And how do you want it modified? The way it's presented? Just to say we're going to vote to have them modify it, that isn't any direction.
I think based on some of the discussion that's been had, bring something back to approve, or have you?
So within your packets, there is a drafted up modification that we would be seeking approval for. And
Okay.
It lists, the only thing that I would add into that I missed before coming to the meeting today was that the eligible properties for new construction, I would add R3 to that list.
We have a motion and a second.
Just so I understand the motion, so you're saying that the eligible projects would be single-family or two-family construction?
Correct.
Other discussion, questions? Director will take the roll.
Schleiss.
No.
Gardner.
No.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Cameter.
Aye.
Laddick.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
4-2.
Motion carries.
See what comes.
Number 7, update on Shopko redevelopment plan and downtown targeted area master plan. Director.
Okay, so there's been a lot going on with the Shopko redevelopment plan since our last joint meeting with the various other bodies in January. So the city did issue an RFP for demolition or raising of the structure itself. We've had a lot of interest. Those proposals are due Thursday, where we'll have a bid opening at City Hall. So if you're really bored and want to stop down, you're more than welcome to. And then we're also finalizing the development plan. So there was a fair amount of feedback provided to us from the public, from members of the various bodies to make some changes. So we've been working with Vanderwall to finalize those development plans and then put together an actual plan for how you're going to implement this and phase this project in. And so that will be forthcoming along with the targeted area master plan in a few weeks here in mid-May. May 14th, we'll have another set of meetings. So you should have received a quorum check from my front office staff asking your availability that evening. As you might recall, we did submit with the developer a WIDA tax credit project, or a LIHTC project, low-income tax credit. That was not awarded in this go-around, so the low-income tax credit project is currently on hold, and city staff is looking for alternative developments for that specific site. On top of that, we continue to work with developers to spur redevelopment on the Shopko site specifically. The major focus and the direction from the mayor's office has been, let's get this project in this area redeveloped, kind of as a higher priority as opposed to some of the other areas. So for the targeted area master plan for downtown, thanks to those who provided input to Vanderwall and Associates a few weeks ago, as we tried to restart that project and that conversation to bring it to some type of conclusion. As some of you might know, we had started a targeted area master plan for downtown and Division Street in 2019, because of COVID and shifting staff responsibilities, that was put on the back burner. And so it's been a desire of my office and the mayor's office to get that project done. The Division Street Targeted Area Master Plan was completed a few years ago, and so this is kind of the final step for the downtown plan. And so as I mentioned, that May 14th meeting at Midstate will present the updated plan itself for
That
review
is
and
a set date
consideration.
now?
Correct, yep.
Okay, because I hadn't seen anything on that.
Yep, that was set this morning. So hot off the press, one might say. For those two specific items, that's all I have as an update. More than happy to answer any questions on either the Shopco plan or the target area master plan that the body might have.
Questions? Alrighty, moving right along, director's report.
Okay, so at the request of the Redevelopment Authority, we are listing the 3 Redevelopment Authority-owned properties with First Weber through Seth and Jordan Horning. They've worked with the city on a number of other projects and have given us a very, very favorable commission rate as opposed to some of the other realtors that we've inquired with. So we'll list 1,700 Strongs for $40,000, 1016 3rd Street for $75,000, and then 217 2nd Street for $25,000. Obviously, any offers would come before this body for review and consideration. You know, our interest, I think, as a body is that these properties not stay vacant, so we don't want a neighbor to buy it and sit on it, right? We want some type of activity. And so, you know, as part of development agreement or purchase agreement, you know, ensuring that there's some development on those properties within 12 or 18 months, I think will be an expected condition anytime somebody would provide an inquiry on any of those properties, and our realtors are definitely aware of the Redevelopment Authority's wishes on that one. The Community Land Trust, we are wrapping up work. We're working on bylaws as we speak. At that point, Redevelopment Authority staff will provide a presentation to you folks on where the CLT is at. I'm sorry, once the work is complete, we'll provide an overview of the Community Land Trust, just to give you an idea on you know, kind of what the strategic plan is for that group moving forward. Again, this body provided funds to hire a consultant to come in and work with the Community Land Trust group, and so we are wrapping up those conversations and actually going into the forming process of the Community Land Trust. 1101 Center Point Drive, that's the former Dunham Sports Stage Shop, Great Lakes Student Loans, whichever one you want to call it. We are also finalizing the report from our consultant on that for the Event Center and Workforce Training Facility. Midstate and city staff had several follow-up questions to the consultant on, you know, how are we making sure that we're going at this from every angle, making sure we're not leaving any stone unturned. And so this week we have our final follow-up with Hunden, who's the consultant, and then we'll be providing that information to the various bodies as well, just to show them, you know, could this work? How, if this could work, how should it function on the ownership structures and things of that nature. So that's all I have for this body. More than happy to answer any questions that you folks might have as well.
Any questions? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you for coming this afternoon.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.